So I just got my hands on the brand new Labo Lavande 31. Despite my often cynicism towards the brand, I was still a bit excited about this because I could just imagine in my mind this kind of clean lavender with Labo's woody, musky base being quite a pleasant offering. I don't own many lavender fragrances. I suppose I have more than I know that uses it as a top note or an aromatic, but as far as straight lavender, I don't have too many, so I thought that this might actually fill a hole in my wardrobe. Now, surprise, surprise, in the grand tradition of the Labo, it is not a lavender fragrance. It is neroli. This is a neroli fragrance. The opening definitely starts with some lavender, a little puff of lavender opening, which quickly devolved into some rather scratchy, woody scent. I kept smelling my arm thinking maybe it's just the alcohol needing to dry off. And at that point, I was pretty skeptical that this wasn't gonna go well. It was really that kind of astringent, nose-piercing, harsh woodiness that, yeah, really creates a scratchy effect, not the airy woodiness of ISO-E. I'm not really sure where that's coming from. But interestingly, about an hour later, that disappeared, things smoothed over, and it got a pretty nice, long-lasting neroli fragrance from there to the life of the rest of the fragrance. Now, I suppose it fills a gap because their neroli is not really about neroli. It's more about sea salt and cologne. I've worn this twice. I wore it the night I got it 2 nights ago. I wore it all day today. As you can see, I used up most of the sample, but I'll refresh the top a little bit. So I've gotten a pretty good idea how it wears, how it smells throughout the day. Yeah, up front, definitely lavender. Again, I don't know if it's the nature of this dabber, that the alcohol is not burning off the way it would a spray, but it really has that nose-piercing astringency of alcohol, but it sticks around more than a few minutes. It sticks around a good half hour or so. Underneath that is the detectable kind of the Labo woody musks. I'm sure there's a huge dose of Hedione and ISO-E Super in this, like there is most of their fragrances. But yeah, the heart and the life of the fragrance is really all about a pretty middle-of-the-road neroli. Now, I'm actually a sucker for neroli, and it's a note I really enjoy, so I enjoyed wearing it. It's pretty, and like a lot of the Labo, I would say it's nice, but that's kind of it. It's just nice. At least it's not a city-exclusive price, because I think the city-exclusives are also mostly just nice, and there's just nothing warrants a $500 price tag on here. Maybe $200 for the main line is a little more digestible. But I thought while I was at it, some lavenders I do have that actually are lavender. Of course, the icon Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme. I wore this when it came out, and I still have drops of that original highly sought after bottle. I was afraid to even try the modern version, hearing all the complaints of Shell of its former self, until shout out to Jacob, highly recommended the made in France. And so I just sprung for a big giant bottle before, I guess, Shiseido closed their contract with Dolce & Gabbana. And it's nice. It definitely reminds me of the original. When I spray it, I'm brought right back to that smell of the original. It's considerably lighter, lacking the tobacco. Oh yeah. But it's just a combination that's so specific and full of memories for me. And this still does the trick for me. But I was thinking of other neroli fragrances. To be honest, I would say you get a similar vibe from like the Joe Malone. I think there's this orange flower or orange blossom. This is maybe a tiny bit greener, a little fresher, but it goes pretty much, just imagine the most straight down the middle kind of orange blossom neroli scent you can imagine. And that's it, that's the base. Longevity was decent. It's actually pretty good. I would say it's pumping out pretty strongly for 5 or 6 hours. Later became a skin scent, but like a lot of the Labos, it was a wafter after 8-9 hours. Once in a while, I'd still kind of detect a little waft off my skin. But it was really reminding me very specifically of something that I had experienced recently. And I finally remembered it. It was Xerjoff Neo, the only Xerjoff I own. Surprisingly elegant and soft wearing fragrance. I would say Neo is a little bit greener. Basically replaced the greens of Neo with a little puff of lavender. But yeah, smelling the cap right now, I'm instantly reminded of the wearing experience for Lavande. So if you have Neo, probably redundant unless you really love neroli. Back to a couple lavenders. The few that I do have, probably the closest lavender Soliflor I have is Serge Lutens Encens et Lavande. I like how it keeps it dry. The incense adds obviously a dry incense coldness to it. I don't really like lavender personally when it goes down the vanilla tonka route. Jersey is one of the few Chanels that I almost can't stand. I really dislike it. But this is really nice, straight ahead, straight up lavender. Of course, we all know Eau Noir lavender with a ton of Immortelle and coffee and spices, and really beautiful. I would buy this any day over the new Labo Boy. This does go a little bit in the powdery tonka direction, but it's balanced just so perfectly, and it has such a beautiful warm aura. So again, Lavande, don't expect lavender that lasts more than about 30 minutes max, but then you're gonna get a nice, pleasant, very wearable, I'm sure people would say, oh, you smell nice, kind of neroli scent for the dry down. If you love neroli, maybe it's worth trying. It's nice, it wears nice, has nice projection, a nice airiness, muskiness. I really can't get over that scratchy woodiness, but thankfully that disappears. It really does disappear, and you're left with just the neroli. But overall, very simple, nothing too interesting. I just had to read here the ad copy because it's hilarious in retrospect. Lavande 31 exemplifies perfume as art, reinventing familiar notes into olfactory masterpieces that ignite the senses and inspire the mind. It's just so funny. I mean, it's maybe a step above a Joe Malone. Simple, wearable, nice, not inspiring, not a masterpiece, not in a million years. Did not ignite my senses, and my mind was definitely not inspired, but it's pleasant. I suppose worth a try. So Lavande 31, the new neroli fragrance from the Labo.